Okay, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. And in today's video, we're going to have a case study. So we're going to dive into one of my pro basketball players' recovery over the last couple months, kind of see what he went through and how we adjusted, and also for you guys to have a better insight on how we actually handle coaching here at Swish and how I actually work with my players one-on-one. Now, the main thing that I want to start off by saying is the setup, right? The setup is something that nobody is really truly doing for you. A lot of coaches will ask you how you're doing, blah 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 blah. But your coach, your strength and conditioning coach at your club, or your physio, whoever is in charge of your performance at the club, doesn't have time to really truly check in with you every single day. In most overseas teams, and even at the highest levels, is very difficult. So therefore, you probably have a program that's for the same for everyone. Maybe it's just a little bit based on your injuries or whatever. Maybe you have your personal rehab or prehab plan. But in general, nobody is truly checking in with you every single day. So that's what I provide for my players. I check in with my players every single day. I check in on their metrics. I make sure everything is okay before they go to practice, before they go to the game. And that way we can actually, prevent injuries in a way. We can look at data. We can look at how certain things affect performance, how they affect recovery, and therefore come up with a personalized, customized plan based on the actual body metrics of that player so that we can provide you with the best service possible, whether that's training, whether that's in terms of recovery, whether that's in terms of nutrition, whatsoever. But now we have real data that we can use to actually build the perfect plan for you. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into this recovery case study of one of my pro players who's currently playing in Russia. I'll keep him anonymous for the video, but let's dive straight into it. Now, one of the first markers that I check, obviously, this is the most obvious one, is the recovery score. Recovery score is basically an accumulation of all certain factors that the WHOOP band is tracking. This is obviously pretty general, but it gives me a general overview of the athlete and where he's at physically. Now, this particular window here is a month overview from April 9th to May 7th. And one thing that we can see is that this particular athlete goes directly from green pretty much into the red, right? Like he has green days, great. Even the high yellow days to me, awesome. Because this is an in-season snapshot, so it's okay to have yellow days. But then we see these big drops, right? We see the average, we see big drop to the red a couple times, right? Especially in the late stretch here towards May, we have one, two, three, four red days in about a week span. That's not great. That shows us that something is going on. Then that shows me something is going on with the athlete, and it shows me that we need to switch things up. Now, the thing with this is that athletes might not directly feel different. So it's not because you have a red recovery score that you feel sick or that you feel horrible whatsoever. No, it's just your body giving you signals. Now, when I see this, it's not too late, but it shows me that we need to make adjustments, right? I'll come back to those adjustments in a minute. Now, this is in terms of recovery score, right? Now, when we look a little bit deeper and we look at that heart rate variability metric, which to me shows a lot about the nervous system, how the nervous system is recovering from games, how the nervous system is recovering from practices, and how it's handling load. One thing we can see here is an enormous dip, right? Around April 9th. And if we go back, April 9th was a horrible recovery score, probably the lowest this athlete has ever had. I remember it was sitting around like 5% or something like that. Now, he was sick on this day, so that's obviously why. He was really sick, he had a fever, and his scores dropped enormously. But on average, we can see this gray score over here. This is where the athlete is sitting on average. And in an ideal scenario, we want to be above it or in it, but we don't want to be under it. And this particular athlete is hitting one, about two, three, four, and then 5, 6 days under this typical range. Now, when this happens, it's not the end of the world. Once again, this doesn't mean that the athlete is not able to play, right? Now, what does this mean is that the athlete is not handling his current load, his current workload, to the ability of his body. So his body is overloaded and overstimulated. Now, this can be from a lot of different factors, and this is exactly what my point was with your coach doesn't have time to ask you these things. This can be from different types of stress. This can be from things like workouts or games, right? Basketball stress or training stress. But it can also be emotional stress. It can be work stress. Whatever type of stress it is, it has an effect on your nervous system. And this is exactly what this is showing. You might feel good, you might feel acceptably good, show up to a workout, but in fact, your body is drained and you don't even know it, right? Because you don't measure it. So your coach thinks that everything is good and he gives you even more load. That is the perfect way to get injured. It's a perfect way to overtrain yourself and eventually break down, whether that's in a week, in 2 weeks, or in a month, right? So this way, by actually keeping track of these ranges and these metrics, we can now see things coming. This was not a good month for the athlete. We see that the dips are too big, that he's under the range multiple times. So there's something going on, right? Now, I will say in this particular athlete's case, this was late in the season. Um, he had before in March and February, he was traveling a lot by plane, had about 2, 3 games every single week. So that's a ton of load. And this was kind of the aftermath. This was kind of postseason leading into the playoffs. Um, so it's not abnormal that this guy's going through this, but it is a sign that we need to slow some things down. Now, heart rate variability, like I said, one of the most important metrics that I track every single day with my athletes to see where they're at in that particular day. Um, that shows the nervous system readiness, right? Now, hand in hand with the heart rate variability goes the resting heart rate, right? You can see immediately this graph is basically the opposite of this one. So when the heart rate variability goes down, heart rate shoots up or resting heart rate shoots up. So for example, this particular day, athlete had a heart rate of somewhere between 60 and 72, probably high 60s, which is obviously extremely high for a trained athlete. So ideally, he's somewhere in the high 40s, low 50s with his heart rate. But again, we see some spikes here. Okay, so we see the spikes that he spikes up all the way here up to 60. Again, that's one of his lower days in terms of heart rate variability. So that also means that his heart rate, resting heart rate is rising. So that means that his body has to work harder even in rest. So he's not dealing well with the workload that's being given or with any type of stress that is going on in his life at that point. Now, paired with that goes another metric, right? For example, sleep performance. It's very possible that sleep performance is high, but that the heart rate variability or the resting heart rate are still giving us signs. That means that sleep is not the problem. Sometimes athletes will sleep perfectly, sleep performance will be good, but their recovery will still be shit. That is because sleep is not the issue, right? Sometimes sleep is the issue, sometimes it's not. Sometimes sleeping more or increasing sleep quality will help, but that's just not always the case. That's also why we track sleep performance. So here we have 2 nights sub 50%. That's obviously horrible. That's not good. It's also very inconsistent. As you can see, we'll have nights way above average and it will have nights way below average. So it's an inconsistent sleep pattern. Again, this athlete was in season here, so he was traveling a lot by plane, also going through time zones. So not ideal, but this wasn't that horrible of a month. So in his case, sleep was not the biggest issue. We can always work with sleep and we can always make sure that we increase sleep and sleep quality. But if sleep is not the true issue, then we need to address what is actually going on. And in his case, sleep wasn't perfect, but it was also not the biggest issue. Now, there's 4 signals right here in this case. Recovery is down. His heart rate variability down, resting heart rate up. Sleep is also down or not perfect. So what does that mean? We need to call for low days. Now, low days, what does that mean? They're basically days where we try to actively recover or make the body spike up again in terms of recovery. Now, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily doing nothing, but it means that we're take into account that the body is not dealing with the workload in a good way. So we need to adjust. That's the biggest thing. We need to adjust and we need to call for low days. So a low day, for example, what I put him through, a little bit of mobility work, stationary work, a lot of aerobic work to just, get the body going, get a lot of blood flow in. Also work on aerobic conditioning a little bit, get mobility in, boom, boom, boom. And then we go into some upper body work, something that's just really low on the nervous system, but we can still get some work in, right? So it doesn't mean that a low day is an easy day. It just means it's easy on the system and it will actually promote recovery, right? So in his case, for example, this is an upper body day, got some core work at the end, and a lot of mobility, right? Now, a sample week in his case, for example, in season, it was pretty simple. So in this case, he was playing on a Sunday. So the whole week we have post and pre-practice lifts that alternated with low days, pre-post practice, low days, off, game days -1, and then eventually game day. So this is how we treated the week after this whole snapshot of a month. So we adjusted based on the monthly patterns and based on everything we knew from that month. But I implemented these low days to really make sure that we can focus on keeping the high day highs and the low days low. So in this case, um, we still implemented higher loads on higher practice days with the pre and post practice lifts, alternated with the low intensity days. So that way we can actually adjust based on the data that we now have, right? So the biggest thing that I want to give you guys with this video is basically showing that if you don't measure what you're doing and you don't have someone actually monitoring how your body is feeling day in, day out, and you're not adjusting what you're doing based on metrics, then you're completely guessing. If I left this athlete in the blue after having metrics like this, he could have gotten hurt in the postseason. He could have gotten hurt in the playoffs. Instead, he actually helped his team win to the third place in the Russian competition, which is amazing, right? He was actually one of the better players on his team late in the season because we saw the trend, we saw that something was going on, and now we could have him peaking at the right time without him getting hurt or without him getting overloaded, despite the fact that he had already played 60 plus games in that particular season, despite the fact that he had to travel so much, and despite the fact that there was a lot going on with him personally at that point. So now he had someone that actually monitored what he was doing, and I could actually look at his data, make decisions from there, implement what was necessary for him to be in the best shape possible at the right time and feel good in the meantime. So if this is something that you need as well, and you're sick of guessing your performance and you want to treat your performance truly like a pro, then DM me performance on Instagram and I'll show you exactly what a customized strategy for you could look like.